Go.
Streaming from South Africa to the world. This is the Stonks Go Moon podcast. What just happened? We break it down so you don't have to.
Your accent is very Western Americanized. So how does that happen?
Oh, I was born in Ohio.
Oh, my soul. Okay. Well, that's...
Yeah.
Okay. That explains a lot. All right, let's rock and roll. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Welcome, everyone, to the Stonks Go Moon podcast. My guest today, Fred Chu, CEO and co-founder of D3 Global. Welcome to the pod.
Thanks for having me, Rocco. Excited to be here.
So, this week, we saw pretty major news in the domain space. Mr. Sam Altman, our favorite AI cult leader, bought himself a vanity, well, what the mainstream media says is a vanity domain name for $20 or $19 million called chat.com. Domain name's still pretty big business, yeah?
Absolutely.
Do you think it's vanity? Do you think it's vanity for them? Or do you think it's really worth $19 million?
Well, having seen .app sell to Google for $25 million, .shop sell for $48 million to a Japanese company, .web still in dispute, famously having sold 10 years ago for $130 million, I think chat.com is relatively cheap.
So they got a bargain. Okay, well, that's the philanthropy side, I guess. Talk to me about how you established D3 Global. What do you guys do, and sort of how, because I know you come from an entrepreneurial background, how that inspired you to where you are now?
Yeah, so the story of D3 started a couple years ago.
Okay.
I was actually at an ICANN meeting, that's ICANN, along with IANA, IANA, that basically are keepers of the internet. Anything with the dot system in your browser, your phone.
They control that. Basically, they control the internet, basically.
It's the most functioning decentralized org out there, made up of 200 plus governments. Policies are made all the time, slowly through very careful consensus. The whole internet, it's a nonprofit. And what we noticed was, as the past 3 or 4 years, there's been the emergence of what we call alt-root systems. So, for example, I want to go to rocco.com, it probably works in my browser. However, if you type in rocco.eth in your browser, I guarantee you it goes nowhere.
Yeah.
And so that alt-root system is actually an important topic within the internet community, called having to do with universal acceptance. And what's also relevant is because in a couple of years, actually less than a couple of years, ICANN is actually going to be doing another gTLD round, which is known as a generic top-level domain. Think back like 10 years ago when they created .xyz, when they created .app, and 300 other plus extensions. There's going to be another round of that. These things usually happen once every 15, maybe 20 years. Now the next round is coming up in a couple. It could be the second time in history, it could be the last time in history that they do this again. So 2 kind of tectonic forces led me and the team here of domain OGs to create D3.
Is that like a gold rush, right? If something comes along every 15 years, everyone's going to be on it.
It's a land rush. Think about these planets where entire groups or organizations are creating their own planet on the internet, and you can then be able to sell, renew all your premium waterfront real estate on that planet, all the way down to the city, block, and street in suburbia.
Jeez.
To give you a point of reference, there's about 150 million .coms paying VeriSign roughly $10 every year. And a small ICANN fee of 25 cents to maintain that namespace. But the good news is secure. It's been around for almost 3 decades. It's fast. Distributed. Every cell phone in your pocket, in people's pockets, and every computer has a local cache of what's called DNS. So and ISPs do as well. So it works. The system works. It's pretty good. It's pretty secure. It ain't broken. You don't need to fix it.
Talk to me about.
Talk to
Yeah. Come again.
but it's going to extend. So the internet's going to get an upgrade.
Okay, let's talk about that upgrade, because one of the things that I read that you will be able to do is you'll be able to tokenize your domain. I'm like, how would that work? And why would you do that?
So there's some offline examples. Putting an RFID tag on a cattle.
Yeah.
Putting a digital representation of a barrel of oil. If you buy oil future, you're not physically carrying, or nor will you likely carry a barrel of oil in your garage or what have you.
Yes.
Same with the gold bars. You're buying ETFs and such and whatnot. So all tokenization refers to is a process by which any sort of asset or maybe sensitive data is replaced by a surrogate value known as a token.
Okay.
So if you're a domain owner, you may want to tokenize your name to make sure it can be tracked globally. And if you want to, for example, and if you had a chat.com in your portfolio, you might want to put it out there in the open market and get more liquidity for it. Top dollar, maybe want to fractionalize it, maybe want to borrow against it, lend against it, lease, be open to leasing it out to folks who want to pay you on a monthly basis or annual basis. The sky's the limit. So tokenization is the core primitive, though. What it means is just creating a non-fungible record on a blockchain that represents the underlying asset.
Are we going to see people buying up speculative domains like we used to in the past? People sitting on buying and then sitting in all parking domains until those things become relevant?
So I actually patented domain parking 20 years ago. We had one of the largest
That's awesome.
portfolios that ran through our company the first time. We were huge, of course, Google partners, Yahoo partners, whatnot. And I think that just to give the audience a little bit of terminology education, it used to be called parking/monetization. Now I think I've heard it being called coming soon pages, which is just like a more of a PC way of saying, yeah, we're gonna milk and make money off your domain name, whether we're gonna pay you or not. But yeah, there definitely is this concept of foot traffic that correlates to physical real estate. So someone who visits a domain name, like I own a domain name called software.ai.
Yes.
You go to software.ai, you'll see parking links right now. If a person clicks on those links, it'll take me somewhere. So there's a built-in utility and kind of a fair exchange of value going on. And the best way to describe it to me, understanding real estate markets as well, all this is just digital real estate. And like physical real estate, there are centralized authorities. There are, at least in the States, something called an MLS. It is centered around a universal identifier for a piece of property or a condo or what have you. All this whole concept around domain name tagging and sort of putting tokenizing is all kind of the same.
I'm with you.
What happens as a result of that? You can then start inserting liquidity and opening up, all kinds of use cases and applications on top.
Yeah, with you. Talk to me about your recent partnership with Identity Digital. What kind of led to that, and why did you guys do it?
Identity Digital is one of the most significant. We're probably the largest applicant round about 10 years ago from the first history that ICANN did one of these rounds. So they run .network, .cash, .finance, .social, .email, which I use personally for my work email. They also own and operate .io, which is the Indian Ocean conglomerate, and also more recently they announced .ai, which is the island of Anguilla, some Caribbean island. It's pretty significant because there's only one authority in the world that can operate this island of .ai.
Jeez.
We work with them very closely because there then is the opportunity to work with the actual owner of the planet to create the authoritative token, the authoritative suite of tokens, set of tokens for that namespace. Whether there's one domain, which is obviously not, or even up to 150 million names, like a .com. So it's important to work with the owner of the planet to tokenize those assets in order to establish trust first and foremost. Without trust, this is all just a bunch of Web3 scams, to be honest with you.
Yes. Okay. Last question before I let you leave, and it's going to touch on what is actually a Web3 domain. Is there any difference between a Web3 domain and a Web2 domain? And that speaks to what is called DomainFi. So what exactly is DomainFi?
Well, answer the first part. There's only one domain to me. It's the domain name that works in your repository. Anything else is what's called an alt root, which I can call even going back as 20 years ago. And more recently, I call them Web3 identifiers.
Okay.
Right.
So
like
.eth, so .eth and stuff like that.
.eth is owned. The right to .eth, if it did exist in the real world, is owned by the country Ethiopia.
Really? Oh, yes. Makes sense. Ethiopia, ETH.
It's called the, not to bore audiences, but is the ISO 3166 Alpha 3 country code, which you do think was designated as an official international standard, decades ago. To answer your other question about DomainFi is simply the ability to financialize management of revenue and transactions around a real asset class, in this case, domain names, right?
Yes.
Fi is short for finances, pointing to monetary resources for any government or company, individual, and of course, revenue. So domain finance, or domain short for DomainFi, is kind of where we're betting big as a organization going forward.
Okay. So basically it sounds to me like, okay, cool. There's a land rush coming, and there's big money going to flow in this direction because it's not once in a generation, but maybe could be once in a generation, because by the time 15 years from now, who knows? How can people participate in this? Is the way that your average retail person, if they want to speculate and maybe make a bit of money, is there a way to do that?
So we have a pre-sale model for future names. They're called expression of interests. So for example, if you wanted to purchase Rocco.Doge, which is a part, we're partnering with the Doge team and the Doge IP.
Interesting.
To get it. It doesn't exist for a couple of years, but meanwhile, we'll issue a token. It's going to have, instead of a dot, it will have a star or an asterisk. So it'll be Rocco Star Doge, and whoever is holding that name will be able to claim for the real, Rocco.Doge or Elon.Doge, a few years from now. So like a claim token, or like a Swifty ticket, I guess you'd call it.
Awesome. Sounds very interesting time coming up. Fred, thank you so much for joining me today. If the listeners want to go and connect with you and learn more about D3, where can they do that?
Go to X @ hey Fred, HEY Fred, FRED. You also might got my email, fred@d3.email.
And we'll put all the links in the comments. Thank you so much for joining me today. And to our listeners, peace, love, and prosperity. Catch you on the next one. Cheers.
You creep into my shadow, thinking you're unseen. Try to take the crown, but you don't know the king. My roots run deep, and my walls won't fall. A kingdom forged in fire, I've seen it all. Your whispers, your lies, they echo in vain. You can't breach the fortress, I'll bring the pain. Defend raging anthem of destiny. No retreat, no surrender, I claim my name through ash and ember.